KU. They don't deserve any more of a banner than that. September 6th, the Missouri Tigers play host to the Kansas Jayhawks. In Faurot Field, Columbia, Missouri. It's going to be in the afternoon kickoff slate. That's fine. When we talked over kickoff times last week or 2 weeks ago. They do have like the highest slot that week, so should be pretty excited about that. It's going to be a huge game. Everyone, people are going to get up for it. And Kansas is an interesting team. Last year, the Kansas Jayhawks did go 5-7. They started off horribly. They beat up on Lindenwood. I don't know if you guys know. I live close to Lindenwood. They were an NAIA power, the Lindenwood Lions. They moved up to D2 and have just kind of been mid. So, they played in the Ohio Valley Conference in basketball. So that's fun. Then they go to Illinois. Jalen Daniels, just a miserable game when they go to Illinois. Illinois at that point, people were like, oh, maybe Illinois is not going to be bad this year. And it turns out Illinois was really freaking good. But 18 for 32, he throws 3 picks, 1.144 average air yards per attempt, 2.7 yards per rush, just was not good at all in that game. In fact, the fact that game was that close is a little scary if you're an Illinois fan. Luke Altmaier was pretty good. Devin Neal, though, 14 carries for 101 yards to pace that offense. Devin Neal's not there anymore. Devin Neal was a really good running back. He's not there. Then they played UNLV, and UNLV, Matt Saluka. Again, how did Kansas? Another one of these games. Like, how do you lose when you have a coach like Kansas does? And Kansas has a really good football coach, Lance Leipold. If you Twitter search me, PsychoZ50. When Barry Odom got fired, he was somebody I brought up because Lance was still at Buffalo. I brought up him. I brought up Jonathan Smith. Look, I'm happy with Eli. Anyway, they just could not get out of their own way against UNLV. I mean, Matthew Saluka, 7 for 18, the UNLV quarterback who transferred out because he wasn't getting his NIL payments or whatever. I believe that was the issue. Jalen Daniels, 12 for 24. And 2 picks. So 2 touchdowns and 3 picks as they go on. And we're just kind of talking about like a weird team last year. So they had 2 one-possession losses, one on the road. They go to West Virginia. They lose on a touchdown with 30 seconds left. Again, looking at Jalen Daniels' numbers, 15 for 25, a touchdown interception. Not awful, but not where you expect Jalen Daniels to be, especially 7 carries for 11 yards. He's a very mobile quarterback. If Kansas is going to get better this year, that's where it's going to be. And this is where everything kind of turned for me for KU. So you're 1-3, but you're only 0-1 in conference. You still have time to rebound. They had Kansas State still on the schedule, Iowa State, who they ended up beating. They beat Colorado because they turned it around in the back half of that season. But they play TCU at home. It's 21-17 TCU, but Kansas goes. It's 28-27 TCU in the fourth quarter after a field goal, 2 touchdowns and a touchdown and a field goal from TCU, and the game's over. And they lose that game. Now you're 1-4, and now you're in panic mode because you haven't beaten Kansas State since I was a small child. I'm 28. You still have Iowa State, like Colorado, still on the schedule. You got to go to BYU, who's undefeated at this time, and it was looking scary. And then they go to Arizona State. And they played them super tough. That's encouraging. They were up 31-28. They lost on a touchdown with 15 seconds left. It was just a weird year for Kansas. You expect them to be better in these one-possession games. When you have a veteran quarterback, when you have a coach like Lance Leipold, they went and they righted the ship a little bit. They blew out Houston, as they should. I think the Houston Cougars will be a lot better this year with Wegman and Fritz. Normally year 2 is when things start to take off for him. But then they go to Kansas State, and they lose on a 51-yard field goal with 2 minutes left. Again, Jalen Daniels, big game, 18 for 31, 209, touchdown, interception. Not bad, but not great. Then they play Iowa State, and they get a huge win. They're 3-6. They go to BYU. They win again. And Kansas fans are wondering, Where was this effort? Those are three teams. Then they beat Colorado. They beat three teams really looking to play for the Big 10 champion or Big 12 championship. And they kind of smoked them. Like these were all 2-possession wins. And then they played Baylor, and Baylor might be the best kept secret in college football. They were really good at last year. I mean, if you take away a Hail Mary against Colorado, like they're 9-3, man. Like Baylor was a really good, 9-3 going into a bowl game. Like Baylor was a really good team. They also lost by 1 possession against BYU. The only team that really got them was Iowa State. Utah, but that was before Utah kind of fell off the face of the earth. Sawyer Robertson was a revelation. They were able to keep him. I know Oklahoma and some other schools were, Missouri I think was too, kind of poking around like, hey, do you want to play? And they got smoked. So they missed out on a bowl game. So I've said for a few weeks now that this is a can't lose game for Missouri. If you take out the name Kansas and you just put 5-7 Big 12 team is coming to your building, and you're like, oh, Arizona, TCU, like insert team here, like, oh, that's not a cakewalk, but Mizzou should win that game. Just because it's Kansas, that doesn't mean it's changed. Now, I do expect Kansas to be better. They do return a couple starters on their offensive line. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. Their left guard is pretty highly touted. They expect big things from him every time I see anything about this. And Calvin Clemens is good too. Like they have 4 guys in their O-line that I've heard of. And offensive linemen in the Big 12 aren't exactly like, oh yeah, dude, I'm ripping off TCU guards. They're a little weak at right tackle. I know right tackle's been a concern. I was listening to the Locked On Jayhawk podcast earlier today. That was a treat. No, they did fine. They're fine. Like us, man. You're all supposed to be biased. But Bryce Foster was all Big 12. He's their center. Like it's a good offensive line. And then they bring back Jalen Daniels. And look, Jalen Daniels last year came on at the end of the year, but he completed 57% of his passes, 14 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The way we talk about Jalen Daniels is I don't know if there's a more overhyped player in the country, and that's not to say he can't be really good. If he was awesome this year, I would not be surprised. But it's going to be on him because they lose Devin Neal, who just simply is amazing. He went for 12,000. He went for almost 1,300 yards last year, almost 16 yards or 6 yards a carry and 16 touchdowns. Also grabbed 24 passes and 254 yards. He was amazing. Now, their backup, Daniel Hinshaw, he looked pretty good. 65 carries, 376 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's not quite the pass threat that Devin Neal was, but he looked pretty good. So I don't think, and with how I just talked about how Kansas's own line, Kansas O-line is expected to be pretty dang good. I think their run game will be fine. Jalen Daniels just has to run the ball better. 93 carries, 439 yards, almost 5 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns, but not really explosive on a game-to-game basis. That can't be the case if they have any hopes of beating what I think is a top 25 Mizzou team in Columbia, a place where they did not lose a game last year. And they lost one game. They've lost one game in Columbia in 2 years. It was to the Heisman Trophy winner. Another, Jaden Daniels. It's pretty close, but we'll see. Last year, offensively, they were still pretty good, to almost 30 points a game. Defensively, not so great, giving up 26 points per game as they went 5-7. Defensively, they returned almost their entire front four. Which I know has Kansas fans excited, as it should. I'm excited for what Mizzou returns of defense and what they brought in the portal and a guy like Darius Smith who might actually play this year. But they bring back Dean Miller. They bring back Jerome Robinson. No, they do not bring back Jerome Robinson. I apologize. They do bring back or JB Brown. They lose their entire back seven, which is a little scary. That's really worrisome. They had some really good dudes back there. Their defensive coordinator, DK McDonald. Their defensive line may be like the best unit on the team. He had 10 tackles for a loss last year. They're talking about the DJ Withers, Tommy Dunn interior, which had some really bright moments. It's a lot of portal guys in the back seven. It just is. Will they be able to get up to speed by the time we play Missouri? I don't know. What helps is Mizzou is their third game of the season. They lose Kobe Bryant, who was a stud corner for them. Recruiting wise, they brought in, I got the Athlon in front of me just because I like things like that. They did bring in 10, their top 10 recruits. There are 10 3-stars there, which is more than what Kansas can normally say. Yeah, man, they don't have a lot at receiver. Their offensive line and run game should be pretty good. I think this is going to be. I'll talk more about the game for Mizzou, Kansas. As we're looking at it on June 23rd. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I might even be shocked if either team hits 30 points. I think this is going to be a run heavy game, and we'll talk about that more in a second.